All right, welcome. This is Directional Scanning 101. The purpose of our class is to discuss how the D-scan works, its functions, and to practice using it a bit. The D-scan, if you're not familiar with it, can give you a fairly large chunk of information about ships in your vicinity and in your system. So it's a really useful tool for pretty much any player in the game to keep yourself safe, and it's also good to use to hunt people down and kill them. So my name's Jindo Lee, and I've been playing this game off and on for about 10 years, I guess. I think my first character is 2004 or 2005. But there are a lot of breaks there, and I tend, I think, like a lot of players, to focus on just a few things in the game, so I am not an expert by any means. But I'll do my best. So if you have any questions, or if I seem to skip something, or I get something wrong or misspeak, please speak up and let me know. As you all know, the game changes fairly regularly, so I might say something that's out of date, so please let me know. Contents of the class, well, we'll be talking about what the D-scanner is, go over the interface a little bit, the buttons and the dials and how they work. We'll talk about range, angle. We'll learn how to aim it and use it effectively, and talk about some of the various uses, and then we'll get out into space and start playing with it. So what is the D-scan? Well, D-scan is kind of like a radar on your ship. It allows you to see any ships in space up to 14 AU away from your ship. It doesn't give any specific location that you could warp to. It doesn't give a specific range either. All you can do with it is learn that there is some ship out there within range of the D-scan, but it doesn't give you any indication exactly where. In order to figure out where, you've got to use your own powers of deduction by aiming it and adjusting the ranges in the process of elimination to figure out where things are. The D-scan will not register any ships that are cloaked. That includes ships with cloaking modules, or ships that have cloaked after jumping through a gate. And again, it cannot give you any kind of a warp in. If you're familiar with probes, probes will allow you to scan down a ship, get a warpable signature that you can warp to. D-scan doesn't do anything like that. Typically, D-scan is used to stay safe. It lets you know that there's someone out there, gives you a range, and if you use it properly, it'll give you kind of a direction. D-scan can be used to see ships approaching you in warp, and it will allow you to escape before they land on grid with you. D-scan can be used to keep an eye out for probes, combat probes, lets you know if someone is trying to scan you down and probe you down, and it gives you time to get away. It can also be used while traveling to check if a gate is clear or not before you jump to it. And it can be used scouting for your own personal safety or for a fleet, to keep an eye on a gate, keep an eye on a planet, keep an eye on a station, and notice when someone jumps in to that particular gate or undocks at a station. Because most players do warp to planets and stations and gates, the D-scan can be used to tell you, well, there is a ship at that planet, so you can warp to that planet and you'll land on that ship. So if you are not in sleighs, that's fine. You don't have to be in sleighs. Go ahead and undock. Any ship is fine. Smaller ship is better, just to stay safe. You can't use the D-scan while you're docked up, so undock. Either sit on a station, or if you are with me in sleighs, I'm going to form a fleet right now, and you can warp to me, and we'll go to a spot where we can work together. But if you're not with us, there's no real need to be in this fleet. I'm going to go to a safe spot right now. I'll land in just a moment, and you can warp to me. Every ship in the game has a D-scanner, and it works the same on every ship. It doesn't matter what ship you're in. To the left of your HUD has your shields and armor and hull. To the left, you'll see a little button that looks like a radar, and it says scanners. When you hover over it, click on that, and you get 3 more choices: probe scanner, moon analysis, and directional scan. This is directional scan. So go ahead and open that up. Opens a little window, the directional scan window, and there you'll notice you have an overview choice. You have a range slider, angle slider, and a scan button. Just like on your overview, you can load various different overview presets to sort of filter out what you want to see. You can use those overview presets on your directional scanner. So you can show different type of objects on your directional scanner. Typically, what you're looking for on your directional scanner is going to be ships. So, for example, I use an overview preset for PvP. If you're a member of EVE University, you should have downloaded the EVE University overview settings file. One of those is 1-PvP. That's a great overview preset to use on the directional scanner, and that will filter all the D-scan results to only show you different kind of ships and pretty much nothing else, I believe. If you don't have the EVE University overview preset, there is a default preset provided to you by CCP called PvP, and that's a good one to use as well. So as I'm talking about this, feel free, go ahead and play with the buttons and see how it works. The range, obviously, allows you to set the range, how far out you can see with your D-scan. Angle will give you an angle, and the angle is a cone. EVE is a three-dimensional game, so even though most of us, I think, get in the habit of thinking of the game as a two-dimensional game, your D-scan is three-dimensional. It's a three-dimensional cone that projects out from your ship. At 360 degrees, you are looking at a 360-degree sphere around your ship out to 14 AU. And then there's the scan button. Every time you hit the scan button, you'll notice in the top right of the directional scanner window, right next to the close, minimize, and pin, when you hit scan, you'll see a little timer run. Usually only goes for like 1 second or 2 seconds, and that means you're doing a new scan. Anytime you adjust the range, that timer goes off. Anytime you adjust the angle, that timer goes off. Anytime you switch the overview preset, that timer runs. And that means your D-scan is gathering new information. The D-scanner is not a live tool. Once you do a scan and you have something listed there on the D-scan, you have some ships, it's static. It will not update until you hit the scan button again. So the only way to get somewhat live information on your D-scan is to just keep spamming that scan button over and over and over. So if you do a scan right now, for example, we're sitting here and do a D-scan at 14 AU, 360 degrees. What do you guys tell me? What do you see on your D-scan? Right. Well, I also see a shuttle, see a Mars shuttle, and a Merlin, a Condor, and an Orca, right? And that Tristan is me. And all of those show a distance. If it's on grid with you, you'll see a distance. If it doesn't have a distance, it means it's not on grid. Okay, any quick questions there about what the D-scan is and what it's used for? Any questions about the interface? Let's move on then. The angle that you're looking at is a three-dimensional cone at whatever degree we specify. So how do you aim that? Well, if you are in space and you press F11, you'll get a little set of maps opening up on the right side of your screen: universe, region, constellation, and solar system. So at the bottom right corner, you should see what looks like a little radar map of the local solar system. And around your ship is that red circle. Around that, you should see a sort of white gradient. It's probably 180 degrees, a half circle, or maybe a little bit less. That is your camera field of view, and that's based on the screen width of your game client. So if you have just a small monitor on a laptop, your field of view is going to be somewhat restricted. That half circle will be a little smaller. If you're like me, you've got a couple of large monitors side by side. With the game stretched out, I'm a little bit more than 180 degrees. As you turn your camera in space, you will notice that semicircle turns with you. So it's basically showing you which way your camera is pointing. It has no relationship to the direction of your ship. That's just the current direction your camera's facing. And then if you adjust the angle slider and say bring it down to about 30 degrees, or you'll now see a green cone extending out from your ship on the solar system map. That's your current D-scan field of view. So the white bit is your camera. The green bit is your D-scan. Your D-scan will only pick up things that are within that green cone shooting out from your ship. So what that means, D-scan results are solely based on the direction your camera is pointing. So how do we scan a specific object in space? Well, you guys that are with me, turn your camera around. You might want to zoom in a little bit so you can see your ship. It doesn't have to be giant, but you should be able to actually see the full silhouette of your ship. Turn the camera around. Place the sun behind your ship so your ship is blocking the sun. Hit a scan, and you've just done a scan in the direction of the sun. You'll notice on the little solar system map that if you're actually in Slaves with me facing the sun, there's also some planets that are within that green cone if you're at 60 degrees like I am. So that means you're not only scanning the sun, you're scanning anything in that direction within a 60-degree cone. So if you want to scan only the sun, drop the angle down all the way to like 5 degrees. Do your best to put the sun directly behind your ship so your ship is completely blocking out the sun. That means you're pointing at the sun. Your ship in this case is your reticle, like a sight on a gun. You use your ship and you aim down your ship with the camera. So if you do that, go down to 5 degrees, put the sun behind your ship, do a scan. You will only get results of the sun. And as you should see on your solar system map in the bottom right corner, you got just a tiny little green ray shooting out from your ship, and it should be hitting only the sun. Now a little bit to the left, turn your camera to the left of the sun. You should see Slays 6, the planet, a station, a couple asteroid belts. Put those objects directly behind your ship. At 5 degrees, hit scan, and tell me what you see. You guys that are here with me, what do you see on D-scan? You should be set at 14 AU, 5-degree angle. Scanning Slay 6. Yep, that's right. Morgan says there's Velator there. Willem Casper's Velator. Point straight north of us on that map. Turn the green cone till it's hitting that planet that's directly above us on the map. You should also see in space, that's Slay 7. Then fine-tune your aiming by moving your camera until that cluster, Slay 7 objects, are directly behind your ship. Press scan. What does your D-scan show? If you're a member of EVE University, you should have the EVE University overview installed. And then I'd recommend using the 1-PVP. 1-PVP will remove everything except ships. So I'm scanning now, what is that? Slays 7. And I see a ship. Using overview preset 1-PVP. What do you see? Maximum range, 5-degree angle. That's right, Morg. There's a slasher there named Hot Potato Slasher.
I just reached Slays and you're seeing Hot Potato.
Oh, that's you. Great. I just linked our fleet if you want to join us and warp to me.
Sure.
You okay, Auric? You see how that works?
Yep.
Do you see the slasher, Hot Potato Slasher, on your D-scan?
Yeah, I do see it. I'm still trying to narrow it down. I'm not trying to get closer to it.
Yeah, it's a little tough to manually aim. Actually, there's a way in the game to automatically aim the D-scan. We're going to talk about that in just a minute. The only reason I'm going through these steps of manually aiming so you can actually see the mechanics of how the D-scan works. This is kind of old school. Back in my day, we had to aim the D-scan manually. Actually, now there's a much easier way to do it. But before I reveal this secret, I want to make sure we have no questions here. You can open your angle up to 60 degrees, right? Scan in a general direction. You can open it all the way up to 360 degrees. And that gives you a full scan of the entire system up to 14 AU. So if you're just trying to keep an eye out on incoming hostiles, typically you're going to want to have it set to 360. Watch spamming scan regularly to see if anything starts to show up. If it does, you run away. If you're actually looking for someone or you're trying to determine whether a specific gate or station is clear, that's when you would want to reduce your angle to 5 degrees so you can scan only a specific object in the distance. So that's manual aiming. Let's talk about how to do this a lot more easily. In your overview, you should be showing some stations, gates, maybe even planets. And let's say I want to scan, the IGES gate. From where we are, that's 10 AU. So that means anything at the IGES gate will show up on our D-scan. To the left of your HUD, right next to the D-scan, you've got another button called Camera Controls. If you click on that, turn on Camera Controls, select Center Tracking Position. So your camera control button should be blue with a little plus surrounded by brackets. That means you have centered camera control tracking turned on. And then you'll notice anything you click on in your overview, your camera swings around and centers it behind your ship. And this is exactly what we need for D-scan. So if you select the IGES gate in your overview, camera swings around, IGES is placed perfectly behind your ship, and you can do a scan at 5 degrees, and you know that the results are only ships that are at the IGES gate. If you have stations on your overview, and you select Slays 5, Moon 1, camera swings around, wait till the camera is finished moving before you hit the scan button. D-scan is instantaneous, so if the camera is swinging and you hit scan, you'll get a scan of whatever direction your camera happened to be pointing there in mid-swing. So make sure the camera is finished moving before you hit the scan button. So this is how you can very, very quickly scan every object in a system. If you've got planets on your overview, which you should have in your Pod Saver tab, you can select a planet, hit scan. If you select Slays 6, your camera swings around, hit scan at 5 degrees, and there's a Velotor. Slays 7, camera swings around, nothing. Slays 5, my camera swings around, I hit scan, nothing there. Pretty empty system. And that's how you're typically going to use your D-scan, using the automated tracking. Now, a really handy feature of the game, if you're fighting someone and you already have them selected because you're targeting them and you're shooting them and you have camera tracking turned on, if they warp away, your camera will pan and track them and you'll be able to see exactly where they went. Wherever they went will then line up behind your ship, and it's a nice way to see, oh, he just warped to Slays 1. Because my camera followed him into warp and swung around and tracked him, and now Slays 1 is directly behind my ship. You don't even have to do a D-scan. If that's the only possible location in that direction, you can just warp there and follow. Okay, next we're going to talk about some common uses for D-scan. But before we move on, any questions about anything that we've talked about so far? How to use the D-scan, how to aim the D-scan, range, angle, anything at all? All right, then let's move on. Let's talk about some of the basic uses. Obviously, scouting. You can be scouting for yourself. Using the D-scan, you can look around the system and see what's there and see where it is. You can see what type of ships are in the system. Scouting for a fleet, same thing. If you're a scout for a fleet and you jump into a system ahead of your fleet, it's a nice way to see what's in space and what's docked up and maybe where, and give a report to your FC and your fleet. You can use the D-scan defensively for advanced warning. You use it as a probe detector by keeping your range at 14 AU and your angle at 360 and scanning repeatedly while you're mining. And if you see combat probes on your directional scanner, then someone in the system is looking for ships. And then you might want to reduce, if you think they're looking for you in particular, because you're at a mission site that they can't get to unless they were to probe you down, then you might want to reduce your range down to, say, 5 AU or 10 AU. If you reduce your range and you still show probes on your D-scan, that means those probes are getting close to you, and they're very likely to be getting a warp-in signature soon, so it's time to get out. You can use it as a short range. You hear people talking about, what do you see in a short range scan? That just means cutting the range down to 5 and seeing if something is near you, or in this case, for defensive purposes, approaching you. We're going to do a quick little practical here, and you're going to see if you can get away from me while I'm in warp to you. By having the range down at 5 AU, D-Scan will pick up ships that are in warp, so you'll be able to see any ship that is warping toward you, and hopefully have time to get away. And then we can use it on gates. We can use it to sit at a safe spot and just watch a gate and see if something's coming through, entering the system, see which gate it's coming from, if there's multiple gates in a system. We can use it defensively while we're traveling to check a gate before we warp to the gate to see if anybody's sitting there. Usually if there's somebody sitting on your side of the gate, just doing nothing for a while, there's probably a friend of theirs on the other side of the gate. And they're just camping the gate, watching both sides. So it's a nice way to check a gate before you warp to it. And then you can use it for player intel. So I want to take a minute here and talk about why we rename our ships. You hear people all the time talking about rename your ship, rename your ship. If I'm in a ship and it's called Jindo Lee's, I think I'm in a Tristan right now, Jindo Lee's Tristan, well, you can actually use that information to your advantage. When you do a D-scan, you don't see the pilot's name. You only see the name of the ship and the type of the ship. I don't know, you're in a battle cruiser, right? He's in a, I don't know, Myrmidon or something. So I see Morg's Myrmidon. And I can then go look that pilot up on the kill boards. And if I'm lucky, I'll actually see some of his previous losses of a Myrmidon, and I can tell you then what he's probably flying right now, what his fit is. And that will help me decide whether or not I should engage him or not. I'll also be able to find him in local. I can double-click on him, open his character info. I can see how long he's been playing the game. I can see if he's in a corporation that is in this local area who might come to his rescue if I were to start fighting him. I can look at his employment history and see how long he's been playing the game. I look at Morg. He started playing in 2015, 2-month-old character, maybe 3 months old, right? Flying a BC. I'm pretty sure I can take him in a cruiser. And if I'm not totally sure, I can go look his name up on Z Killboard, see how he typically fits his battle cruisers. I can see that maybe he's got no losses, which means he's a missioner. He's probably fit for missions. And then I know I can maybe dock up and refit specifically just to fight him and take him out. So that's why we rename our ships. By not renaming your ship, you give your enemy a lot of potential intel to help them decide whether or not to engage you. And it also tells them what corporation you're a member of, what alliance you're a member of, and whether or not they can expect people to come to your rescue or not. All right, let's talk about sharing D-scan results. If you are a member of a fleet and you've been asked to scout, there's a nice tool which you can use. So if you open a new tab, then click on this link, you'll go to this Eve Tools D-scan page. And using that, you can copy and paste the results of your D-scan into that white field, and it'll give you some nice information that you can then share with your fleet without having to verbally or even worse, type it in a channel. You can paste the D-scan results into that tool. It generates a link, and you can just give that link to your FC, and he can see everything that you see on your D-scan. So let's try it. Go ahead, 360 degrees, 14 AU, do a D-scan, select in the results window of the D-scan, hit Control-A to select all. That will select everything. Control-C to copy it to your clipboard. And then in the Eve Tools website window in the white box, Control-V to paste. Hit the Submit button, and it's given me now a nice overview of what those results are. I can see that there's 1 cruiser, there are 2 frigates, there's 1 rookie ship, 1 shuttle, etc., etc. So it gives me a nice set of results of ship types. And I can share that just by copying the URL, paste it in chat, and anyone can click on it and they can see my D-scan results. So that's really nice if you're scouting for a fleet. Maybe the FC's got 2 or 3 people scouting, looking for some stuff to do, right? The scouts can just give those links to the FC, and then he can see, without having to talk to anybody, what they see. That's one tool. There's another one I actually like better. EveTools is a nice site, but I think DScan Me is a little bit better. So I've just linked DScan Me. Go ahead, click on that. Same thing. Do a scan of your system. Control A, select all in the directional scan result. Control C to copy. Go to the white box in the browser. Control V to paste and submit. So I can see here we've got 8 core scanner probes, the Sun, Shuttle, Merlin, Velotor, etc. And then I can see it sorts by ship type, if it's capital, subcapital, structures, and other things. Now, another nice feature here, not specifically related to the DScan, but it is really handy. Across the top there, if you're at the DScan Me page, you see Home, DScan, Local Scan, Fleet Scan, Link Fit. Local Scan is really nice. In your local chat channel, you can click on the list of pilots, Control A to select all of the pilots in the local chat, copy, go to Local Scan at DScan Me and paste it into the white box, Control V, and submit. And now I can tell you I have four players in local that are in the same alliance, 4 in Ivy League. 8 different corps are represented here in local, 4 EVE University, 2 Sea Dogs, 1 Republic Military, and 1 PCG. So whereas normally I might see a whole bunch of pilots and there's no real way to know which ones might be flying together, which ones might be in the same fleet or even in the same corporation without manually going through and clicking on all of them and looking at their information, this local scan will give me a quick overview. So if I come into a system and I see 20 pilots all in the same corporation, I'm going to assume that they're in the same fleet. Morgan asks, do you recommend EVE Pirate's Little Helper? I've only played with it just a little bit. I know some people really like it. Honestly, I've only played with it a little bit, so I don't want to pass judgment on it one way or another. It seems like a nice tool. And, any tool in the game that can give you more information is, of course, good. I know the guys at our low-sec campus, they use it a lot. And I think in some fleets that fly out of low-sec, I've heard, I'm not sure if it's true, but I've heard that they expect people to have it. Or asks, what's Fleet Scan for? It allows you to copy and paste fleet composition, a window that you don't have unless you're an FC or a wing commander or squad commander. If you're in one of those roles, you get an extra window that opens up and you can see every ship that's under you in the command structure. You can see what type of ship they're flying, what their position is in the fleet, their skills, where they are currently located in space. And by pasting that in, it just gives pretty much the same information, but it gives me a condensed version. So in our fleet, I can see we have 1 Tristan, 1 Slasher, 1 Merlin. 4 of them are in sleighs. If we were spread out, it would tell me how many are in each different system. Okay, any questions there about anything at all up to this point? All right, I'm going to take maybe a quick 5-minute bio. It's a good time for a little break. But before we do, any questions at all about anything up to this point? How the D-scan works, how to aim it, how to gather intel, basic uses. All right, then. I'm going to take a break. All right, it's 9:12. Let's get going here. What we're going to do, if you want to stick around and listen, you can. Even if you're not with us in Slays, that's fine. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to leave you guys all behind at a spot in space. I'm going to warp away, and then I'm going to turn around and warp back. And you're going to be spamming your D-scan at 5 AU. And the moment you see my ship show up on D-scan, that means I'm in warp and I'm about ready to land on you. It's time for you to run away. If I land and I'm able to lock you before you get away, you're dead. So you want to make sure your D-scan is set to maybe 5 AU. Even 10 AU is fine. I'd recommend 5 AU. Angle is at 360 degrees. And you should no longer see my ship. I am the evil ship of doom. Keep hitting your scan button regularly. And as soon as you see the evil ship of doom on your D-scan, it's time to run away. You can warp anywhere you want. I'd recommend a planet. Just warp away, get off grid. If I get a full lock on you, you're dead. I now see you guys on the D-scan. You should see me. If I didn't mention it before, you can use the D-scan while you're in warp. Good, everybody got away. All right, good. Almost got the slasher. Good job. All right, everybody, warp to Jindo Lee. Find me in your fleet window. Right-click, warp to. I see 2 people in warp on their way to me. I see a Merlin and a slasher approaching. I see Jindo Lee's Velator. That's funny because I'm Jindo Lee. Somebody's got a good sense of humor. Again, if there's no distance, that means it's not on grid. If there is a distance, it's on grid with you. So that's a nice way to keep yourself safe when you're mining or when you're running missions. If you see someone enter local that you're suspicious of, a war target, or if you're in an empty system, doing some exploration, someone shows up in local, time to open up your D-scan and start spamming and keep an eye out. If you see someone show up on short scan, that means they're coming towards you. Most likely, if you're out in the middle of nowhere at an object that other players can't warp to, first thing you're going to see are probes. So you'd want to start de-scanning, watch for combat probes. If they start getting closer, either get away or, maybe you want to have a little fight. It's up to you, but that's how you can see if a ship is approaching you. So now we're going to try something different. You're going to try to hunt me down. Okay, I'm warping the fleet, and then I'm going to leave you guys behind, and you're going to use your D-scan to try to find me and warp to me. Now, you're not going to be able to warp to me directly. If you land right on top of me, I'll know that you've warped to me and not the planet. You're going to find me on D-scan. By using D-scan, figure out which planet I'm at and then warp to that planet. You'll want to have your range maxed out, your angle at 5 degrees. I'm going to warp to the sun first so you can't see which direction I'm going, and then I'm going to place myself at another planet in range. All right, I'm in place now, so you need to find me. How do you do that? Range 14 AU, angle 5 degrees. Make sure your camera controls are set to center tracking position. All you have to do is select some planets. Your camera swings around. Once your camera's stopped moving and it's lined up, hit scan. And if you see the evil ship of doom, you know I'm at that planet. If not, select the next planet. Your camera will swing around, hit scan, see if you see me. All right, I see a few people here. Good job, you found me. Okay, so hot potato, you landed right on top of me. That means you warped to me and you didn't find me via D-scan. You're cheating.
I think I got you guys. Slave 5 Planet Baron.
You should see Velator, a Merlin, I believe. There we go. Good job. Very nice. Okay, let's try this one more time. This time I'm not going to be at a planet. I'm going to be at possibly an asteroid belt or a station around a planet. So the easiest way to find me would be to first scan the planets. Since the planets and the moons around them and the asteroid belts are close enough together when they're in the distance, D-scan 5 degrees, Slays 5, that will show me everything around Slays 5, not just the planet, but the moons and the stations and the asteroid belts. So if you D-scan Slays 5 and you see me there, the next step would be to warp to that planet, see if I'm at the planet itself. If I'm not, once you've landed at that planet, then you're going to need to start de-scanning the stations and the asteroid belts. So you'll need to make sure that you can see asteroid belts on your overview as well as stations. I don't know about you guys, my PvP/travel, I have a travel overview preset, shows me gates and stations. So I've got that loaded up in one overview tab. Then I've got another overview tab called situational, where I just load random tabs as I need, random presets as I need them for different purposes. It's not set to anything specific. So if you have an extra tab that you're not using at the moment, you can right-click on that tab and load the default preset called mining, and that will show you asteroid belts. Or you could just load a preset that shows all. That's fine too. So I'm going to warp away first. So you don't know where I'm going. I'm going to just warp to the sun. You guys wait here. All right, I'm warping to my location. Again, you want to have your range at 14 AU, angle at 5. Start scanning different things. See if you can find me, warp to it. You might have to scan again some of the surrounding objects. Again, if you land right on top of me, I'll know that you've warped directly to me rather than finding me on D-scan. So again, start with some planets. See if you see me around a planet. If you do, that means I'm at one of the objects around that planet. Somebody's here already. Good. How we doing, Orc? You said you're new to the game. Are you following along okay?
Yeah, I thought I found you, but I gotta find the direction you're in.
All right, check each planet that's in range.
At Slays 6, Asteroid Belt 3.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Okay, yeah, I had to warp a few places first.
Okay, we're going to try this then one more time, and then we'll be done. I'm going to be anywhere in the system. So that means a number of objects are out of range of your D-scan. So you might have to scan one side of the system to try to find me, and then scan the other side of the system to try to find me. Once you figured out which side of the system I'm on, then you're going to have to scan individual celestials to find me. I'm going to head to the star and then bounce to a location, and we'll see if you can find me. And while we're doing this, since we're pretty much done, any questions at all along the way, please feel free to ask. Okay, I'm at position. Go ahead and see if you can find me, guys. All right, there we go. We got one. I think you got the idea. I'm going to make this harder. And just to screw with people a little bit, I'm going to warp away, see if you can find me. All right, nobody's found me. Come on, guys. You can do it. There we go. 2. I mean, you don't actually have to do it that way, of course. If you've got stations and gates on your overview, then, you can scan the stations as well. But the problem is, a station and a planet are going to show up kind of the same position on your D-scan, so you still won't know which one I'm at until you go to them. And you could use the process of elimination, warp to the planet. I'm not there. I must be at the station, and vice versa. And one thing I didn't mention, and it is worth mentioning, sometimes you might have some things sort of lined up so that, oddly enough, one planet is directly behind another planet that you're D-scanning. They line up perfectly. And one planet is 10 AU away, and another planet is 3 AU away. So I'm going to show up on your D-scan, and you won't know which planet I'm at. Then you just use your range. And by using the range slider, you can figure out, am I at the planet that's far away, or am I at the one that's close to you?
Hey, Jindo, in the D-scan window, in the distance column, like I'm doing a scan now, I got the stars at 3.4 AU. And then I've got a gate at 12 kilometers that I just went through. And then there's 2 ships, but they just have little dashes and no distance. Why is that?
Ships won't give you a distance unless they're on grid.
But I'm a little confused. What's considered on grid?
Grid is the local area in space, 250 kilometer sphere around you, or around the celestial object. A grid is, if you're on grid with something, it will show up on your overview. Ships will show up on your overview. If they're not on your overview, they're not on the same grid with you. So, for example, when you're at a gate, you'll see in space the turrets and any other ships around that gate, NPC or player. If you were to fly away from that gate 300, 500 kilometers, eventually all that stuff will just disappear suddenly from space. That means you've fallen off the grid, and they won't show on your overview. The gate itself, stations and planets, large celestial objects will always show on your overview, and they'll always show in space, but you're not on grid with them unless you can see the things around them.
So in D-scan, I see these 2 Tengus, and I know they're within my 14 AU, but it's not telling me how far, but as soon as they were within 250 kilometers, then I would see that
Right.
250 kilometers,
Right.
which, by the way, is too late if they're working in. But
Yeah. Yeah. And grids can stretch. They're reset every night at downtime. Basically, every planet, every station, every gate, every asteroid belt has a sort of local grid, 250-kilometer sphere around it. And any ship that lands there will show up on your overview and will be visible in space. And there is a way, by flying away from that object, to stretch that grid, because they don't want everyone just falling off grid at exactly 250, so they become dynamic and you can stretch them. If you're on grid and I'm on grid and I fly away from you for a while, the grid will start to stretch so that I don't just disappear. And you can actually stretch a grid over 1,000 kilometers. But it doesn't stretch the whole grid. It creates little pockets that extend into space in random directions. And they stay that way until downtime.
And I don't know for sure, but it might have something to do with your sensor strength, because when I leave JITA, I have like an exit, safe point or whatever. And so I leave JITA, I warp to my safe exit, and it's not too far out, but in some ships, I can still see JITA and the other ships around it, but in other ships, it just all disappears.
No, it's because either the grid has been stretched or not. Every day it's going to be different.
Ah, okay. So I'm not stretching the grid. This is some game.
Someone else is flying away from the station manually without warping and manually stretching the grid. And it stays that way. It stays that way for everybody. So if you were to just fly directly up, you would create this little protrusion of the grid directly above it. And it's only directly above it that the grid pokes out, I guess. And if you can actually cross that grid. You could go across it, and you would, for just a moment, show up and then again drop off as you went across that little protrusion. There are ways to play with the grid that are really kind of interesting, and you can use them to your advantage. All right, guys, I think we've covered everything. If you have any question, please feel free to ask. There's a link again to the forum thread. I'd appreciate any feedback. If you have any questions at all about this class, or in fact, at this point, if you have any questions about E-UNI, you're welcome to ask.